Since we're talking about chemistry, let's move into previewing the first round of the playoffs. And can all the rumors that Brock Besser doesn't fit in with the Canucks locker room find the nearest fire and die now, please?
Is that a thing? I didn't know that was.
Yeah, there was apparently rumors passing around that the team wanted to get rid of Besser in the offseason because he didn't mesh with team chemistry.
If that is the case, you tell the conflicting pieces that are opposing Besser to get lost. Like, if that's even a problem. Okay,
because
that's ridiculous.
If there was a question about whether or not Besser belonged on this roster, he sure took it out on his hometown team.
So let's start with the Canucks. And Kaley, I'm going to let you run with this here. So you defeat the Wild.
Minnesota in 4.
Beat Minnesota in 4. You got the Blues next. Almost had the Stars. Almost had that ideal matchup in the Stars. But you're playing the Blues. First of all, what did you like about the Canucks game against the Wild? And what are their chances and what do they got to do either the same or different to beat the Blues?
They didn't need Petey, I think, is the thing that I liked the most about the play-in series. Pettersson was good and definitely contributed some points, but they didn't need him to be successful offensively. There were plenty of times where Hughes and Besser or Hughes and Miller or really anybody in the top 6 did it without him. Tanner Pearson was great. And I think his contract's expiring, but I really don't think you're going to see him in another set of colors next year. I'm pretty sure he's going to get paid. Pettersson was really good and was an integral piece of the offense, but they didn't need him to win, which I think is a good sign for this team going forward. A lot of people forget he wasn't even the team's leading scorer this year. That was JT Miller. We need more depth scoring, I think, is a problem. It can't all come from Besser and Hughes, which is pretty much where it all came from in the preliminary series. Especially Hughes. Oh, my God, especially Hughes.
What, that he was, like, carrying the workload or he wasn't doing his part?
No, the idea that we need more depth scoring from the roster because he can't do it all on his own.
Yeah.
The kid's a rookie. I'm pretty sure he's still a teenager. And if he's not a teenager, he's literally 20 on the button. Mm-hmm. And he might be the best player on your roster, full stop.
You think Quinn Hughes is even over Pettersson?
He might be better than Pettersson.
Or maybe at least like more valuable, seeing as he's a defenseman.
And not only is he a defenseman, he's sound defensively. He plays against top lines, big minutes. He's a power play quarterback that's practically untouchable. You have to remember that the kid put up like 50-something points, I think maybe 50 exactly, in his rookie season in 70 games. He would have finished with 60-plus points as a rookie. So what is his ceiling? Like, are we talking like Carlson or Brent Burns numbers as a ceiling?
That'd be nice.
Because if that's the ceiling on Quinn Hughes, yikes. Yeah. Is that Canucks team going to be filthy?
Yeah. That combination of like skills and everything, like he sounds almost like very similar to like what like Sergei Gonchar was for the Penguins. Like,
and the thing with the Canucks was with picking up Miller in the offseason, you added a power forward. Mm-hmm. Which you were sorely missing in your top 6. So now you get to have Bo Horvat, the undisputed king of faceoffs.
Yeah.
Dealing with, getting to play with Pearson and Toffoli. And that line is great. Mm-hmm. Like, just nothing about it. It's essentially 3 big, burly guys that win faceoffs and make you look bad while they score on you.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Canucks, like what they lack in experience, they're making up for with the fact that their roster is gelling together rather well.
Yeah, it's funny. I would almost say that it's a reverse Leafs thing, where we are not where the Leafs should be in their development. We're where the Leafs should have been a couple years ago. But we're getting the results that the Leafs wanted a couple years ago by having players that play well together.
Yep.
Because having Hughes be so consistent let you move Edler down to the second pairing to make a more defensive pairing for you to use to shut down the other team, which doesn't take away from the fact that Edler can walk across the blue line and crank it like the best of them. So you now have the lottery line, your first line, and then you have like Bo Horvat's grindhouse line, essentially.
Yeah.
And then the bottom six needs to do more, but Brandon Sutter's been doing his job, is the thing that if you go back and look at the highlights from the Wild games, they get zero space when they have the puck. Because every single time they try to settle down with the puck, there's Sutter again.
Mm-hmm. And also, you got Markstrom playing really well as well.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big thing too. Is that Vancouver, after the absolute disaster that was their handling of the Luongo, Schneider, Lack goalie triangle, finally has a goalie they can have confidence in and a backup they trust.
Yep. Who's the backup now? Demko?
Thatcher Demko.
Demko? Okay.
And I think Markstrom has a lot to prove because he was always sort of kind of the guy in Florida, but that team was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Now he has a good team in front of him that's coached well, and you're seeing the change in his play. I think his playoff goals against average is like a 920 or higher. I think it was a 926 going into Game 4 against Minnesota.
It's pretty good.
Which, I mean, like was like a high-scoring affair. The Canucks won 5-4 in overtime. But the one thing about the series, if you go back and look at it, is the Canucks won their 3 games in every possible way. One of them was like a tough, middle-scoring, close game. One of them, if I'm not mistaken, was a Markstrom shutout. And then one of them was a high-scoring overtime game, which ended in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected, which is that the overtime was won 11 seconds into overtime because Tanev just walked over the line and just fired a wrister from the blue line into the top corner on Stalock. So I think the thing with the Canucks right now is that a lot of the big-name players are getting a lot of attention, but you're starting to realize the value that's in a lot of the players that people are forgetting. Because I think people are forgetting Tanner Pearson and Tyler Toffoli. I think people are forgetting Chris Tanev. Obviously, the Canucks don't have Sven Baertschi because he had injury concerns this year. They just lost Michael Furland, who
he opted out of the restart, didn't he? Sven Baertschi did.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, Baertschi opted out, but he was playing in the AHL at the end of the season, which is probably why he chose to opt out. And then Furland. I don't want to talk about Michael Furland right now.
Yeah, fair enough. So, what do the Canucks have to do against the Blues, and what is your series projection of how this is going to play out?
I think the best thing about this series is that the Canucks don't have anything to prove.
Mm-hmm. They're house money. This is like when the Leafs played the Capitals that first year.
Yeah, it's the measuring the Blues are the defending Stanley Cup champions and were the top team in the West. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they fell to the 4 seed because of the whole way that they did seeding with the round robin play and stuff.
Those games were bullshit, though. Those games, they treated them like exhibition game. No one cared. I think the Flyers were the only team I saw gave a legitimate like playoff effort in those games. I don't think anyone else did. And
that means that the Blues just become the yardstick for Vancouver, which is that if we're assuming that the Blues sort of played like they were exhibition games, I think that's a fair assessment. You're playing the top team in the West, arguably the top team in the league, and the defending Stanley Cup champions in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Am I too off base to say that Vancouver's kind of like cast, you look at the different characters they have through their roster, there's a lot of similarities between them and the Blues. Am I off base by saying that, or can you see that?
I think the teams are very similar in construction, which is that you have a couple of elite defensemen. In the Blues' case, obviously Pietrangelo and Parayko. And then, of course, Vancouver has Alex Edler and Quinn Hughes. I think you have a line of forwards on both teams that are stone-cold killers. Obviously Vancouver has the lottery line, and then for the Blues, you have their top line with Tarasenko.
O'Reilly.
And O'Reilly. And then both teams have, a big name forward that garners a lot of attention, but I think is sort of underappreciated by players outside the market. For the Blues this year, that was David Perron. For Vancouver, it is, has been, and will forever be Captain Bo Horvat. Because I swear to God, nobody understands how valuable he is if they're not a Canucks fan. And I think the teams have very similar makeup. I think the question is, how much developing have Vancouver's kids done? So it's a measuring stick series. I think if Vancouver pushes the series to 6 games, that's a success. If you can pull 2 games off of the champions, that's a success for where you are at this point in your rebuild, in your, I guess, build now, because you're past the part of this. I think if you force 7 games, you're very happy. If you win, you're over the moon because you're playing with house money. I do think that Vancouver's will pull a couple of games out of this, but I don't think they'll win. Okay.
So what are you saying?
I think it's Blues in 6, and I think if you're Vancouver, you look at this as free house money. Thank you for an extra 4 games of playoff experience, NHL. We will see you next year when the season reconvenes.
I have Blues in 7. I think I like Vancouver's team, and I like the way Patterson and Besser play, and I like the kind of secondary cast that they're building up now. And I think Markstrom, hopefully in another season or 2, I think Markstrom's going to be the X factor here, because if you get playoff Binnington from St. Louis, the series could easily be shorter just based on that fact. But I think the Canucks are going to take that house money and are going to make a little noise. But again, I don't think they're going to get past the Blues in 7.
Yeah, and I think that that's the correct way to look at the series overall. I don't think – apologies, knocked my phone off of its perch, so now I'm correcting things. I don't think that you have a team that can beat St. Louis yet.
No.
I think you have the parts to do it. I just don't know if the team can do it right now. Now we've seen that. I think if you're rebuilding and at this stage in a rebuild where you're just getting all of your young pieces together, I think having a line that can take over a game the way that 649 can is a really important thing, because I think having a line like Besser, Pettersson, and Miller always gives you a chance. In the same way that having Matthews, Marner, Tavares does for the Leafs. If you have 3 guys of that caliber, you can just put on the ice. You're never out of a game.
Yeah, I think players like Miller, and I think Toffoli is a player to watch in this series as well, because he's a pretty underrated playoff performer when he was with the Kings, and a pretty key part of that. I said
Pearson's contract was up. I'm pretty sure it's Toffoli's contract that's up, and I'm pretty sure he'll be sticking around.
Okay.
He also has a lot of chemistry with Bo Horvat, which I think is an underrated thing that people need to consider at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because Bo is no longer expected to carry the offensive load for the team.
No.
He's good for 50 to 70 points a year in the right situation, but that's not where he's most valuable. You have to remember that there was a chunk of time during the season where Travis Green was literally playing him as the 4th forward on the power play, having him take the face-off back to Hughes, then having Hughes quarterback the puck for 10 seconds while Horvat skated back to the bench and let Toffoli come on to join the power play.
Oh, jeez.
Because Horvat's value isn't in his offensive play. It's his two-way play. So you need players that'll play with him and face-off.
Yeah.
And you need players that give him an opportunity to succeed, because Horvat's going to log a lot of minutes because you're having him take faceoffs regardless of where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there were several times this season where he went out, took a faceoff, and then immediately got off the ice for somebody else.
Yeah.
Where Green was literally putting him out there to get in the dot, win the faceoff, and then get off the ice.
Yeah. And win it well enough that they could execute that plan. Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
always work out smoothly.
So, yeah, I think we'll see. But I think that now your goal is, because you know the top line's fine. They all work together great.
Yeah.
I think you now just need to find the right pieces for Horvat, and it looks like Toffoli and Pearson might be the right pieces for Horvat.